Unleash your inner fire on the court with Ektelon Diablo, Inferno, and Rogue RS. 3 paddles designed to ignite your game. Updating the previous Inferno with the industry standard raw carbon fiber, thermoformed one-piece construction, and 3 paddle shapes. Whether you're aiming for devilish precision, blazing power, or dynamic agility, these paddles have you covered. Hello, Tiff. We were fans of the previous Ektelon Inferno. This is the update. What's the difference here?
Well, good morning, William. Yes, I did use the Inferno, the previous one. There was a 16 millimeter and a 13 millimeter. I opted for the 16 millimeter, which is my usual go-to width. For me, the biggest standout is a change in surface, and it really translates into a lot more spin. I mean, now there are 2 different shapes as well, and making 3 different shapes in this line. But for me, yeah, even when using the 16 millimeter that I used previously, I could notice a spin right away. Just top spin, underspin, whatever spin I was going for, the ball was just really gripping to this surface. William, I know you are also quite familiar with the previous Inferno. What are your thoughts on the comparisons?
Yes, I love the fact that they've updated to the carbon fiber surface. I love that there's 3 new shapes. Offers a bit of flexibility there if you prefer different styles. The thermoform one-piece construction, really awesome. And like you said, the spin is amazing on these. I would put it up where the carbon paddles were, and in my opinion, those were some of the most spin-friendly paddles. So really love the update from Ektelon here. Now when it comes to power and control, I feel like all 3 of these paddles did a really great job, kind of being all-court paddles, favoring a bit on the power, in my opinion. At this price point, they weren't maybe as plush as some of those $250 paddles where I could be anywhere on the court and it would do everything for me. I don't feel like those paddles did that. But at this price point, they were really great from all areas of the court, just lacking a little bit on some power and a little bit of control. What did you think?
Yeah, agreed. I really didn't think that this was like matching some of the more powerful paddles out there. I've hit some paddles like the Hush from Diadem and also the Gearbox Power series. Those are much more powerful than these, although I wouldn't say these are not powerful. There's plenty of power for my game. I especially found the Inferno and the Diablo to be a little bit more powerful than the Rogue, but I do think that might be due to their shape and the play style that I have. I like that longer shape. I feel like I'm getting a bit more leverage off of the paddles. For me, when you're mentioning the shapes, I have to say I am most comfortable with the Inferno shape. I started playing pickleball a few years back, and one of my first paddles was the Invicta, so I really liked that shape and it feels really familiar to me. What is an improvement for me on that is I can get 2 hands. I'm now a 2-handed backhand player, so I really like that the Inferno has a length of handle that I could get both hands on. I also like the Inferno slightly more than the Diablo, which was my second favorite shape. It just felt a little bit more stable for me throughout the court. And the Rogue, I've never been a standard paddle shape fan, but for me, this one was one of the best standard shaped paddles that I've used.
I am gonna sound like I'm mimicking everything you said, but I agree on multiple accounts. I was a fan of the Hyperion, the Yola Hyperion series, and that featured a very similar shape to the Diablo. Played with that for a bit, really enjoyed it, the maneuverability and the power that offered. Ended up really liking the Perseus on the Yola line, which matches the shape of the Inferno, and it was the same thing. Like the Diablo initially, ended up really loving the Inferno just because of the shape of it. I wasn't really stoked on starting to hit with the Rogue because I'm not a standard shape paddle fan. But I have to say, this is one of the best playing standard shape paddles I've ever hit with. Obviously the stability story is there, but the power and the control I got from it at the non-volley zone was really stand out, and I thought that they did a great job on the Rogue, being a paddle that I wouldn't probably choose initially. But yes, the Inferno has that boxier shape that I tend to find myself leaning more towards. You know, my paddle of choice being the Franklin FS Tour Dynasty right now, very similar shape. It just offers that great stability, bigger sweet spot. So I think the Inferno is probably my standout of the 3. Now, you mentioned grip.
Yeah.
What did you think of the grip?
I find it to be a pretty nice grip. I could easily change my hand's grip position comfortably, whether it's baseline, coming to the net. I don't move it a ton, but I liked it and I thought I could grip it well. It's a good size for my hand. I tend to like the smaller grip sizes. For me, the length on the Rogue is a bit too short. I do like to use two hands, and so for me that shape just doesn't fit my game style super well. So there were times if I'm not paying attention, if I'm going to put that second hand on, I was actually grabbing the paddle and not the handle. So that therein lies the problem for me. It's just a little too short. Feel though, great.
Yeah, I loved the length on the Diablo and the Inferno as well. The length on the Rogue was a little short, about 5 inches. The grip altogether feels pretty decent at this price point. It's not plush as you would see on something that was $250, but at this price point, pretty great. The one thing I do have to say is on the Rogue, I don't know if this is a manufacturing issue on some and not others, but you can kind of feel the pallet on the sides a little bit, almost reminiscent of the really old paddle techs where you can kind of feel the hard edge walls on that. Tiffany, looking at the stability, forgiveness, feel, maneuverability story, where did you find the most success with these paddles?
Well, you briefly mentioned it with the Diablo here. I do feel like that one is a little bit more maneuverable than this Inferno up at net. It just has that little curve, so it does cut through the air just a bit better. But for me, the Inferno has a little bit more stability on the wings. If I'm missing off to the sides, I just feel like it's a little bit more stable for me. The Rogue, it's quick for me in those close to the body shots. However, I find it more difficult to roll my volleys, and which is definitely a part of my game I'm trying to improve and try to utilize more often. So I preferred both the Diablo and the Inferno in those situations where I was trying to get spin at the net. Just easier to come up over top of the ball.
When it comes to feel, for me, I felt really connected to all my shots with all three of these paddles. I thought that Ektelon did a great job with the feel. When it comes to stability, I echo what you're saying. The Diablo didn't have as much stability as the Inferno, obviously because of the shape. The Rogue being the standout with the stability. When it comes to maneuverability, stability, sweet spot, the whole thing, I felt like the Inferno really was the entire package. It encompassed everything that I wanted. You know, it wasn't as maneuverable as maybe these other two, but it was just so stable, that sweet spot. Everywhere I was at, I just felt like I was getting what I needed, even though it was slightly more cumbersome to kind of get around on some of those quicker shots. So overall, Inferno was a standout for me. I feel like this was maybe reminiscent of the SLK Halo Pro paddles. Also, maybe the Carbon series of paddles. The spin, like I said, was just outstanding. Really great all-court playability. Not as plush or as all-court as some of those $250 paddles, but at this price point, you really can't go wrong.
Agreed. Yeah, I have to agree. Inferno, my choice as well, but really I'm impressed that you can get similar playability in the 3 different shapes, because not everyone likes the same shape that William and I do, but you do get 2 other options and a great playability, great spin at a great price point. And that wraps up our review. To get your next pickleball paddle, visit us at pickleballwarehouse.com or totalpickleball.com.au.